This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
Introduction. The Britain Empire established its rule in India from 1858 until it gained its independence in 1947. The regions ruled included British India and the princely states, which signed treaties with the Britons to enjoy their protection and some local autonomy in exchange for their acceptance of Britain's representation in all affairs. Though the Indians resisted Britain's rule, they were unable to overcome the British soldiers' tactics and weapons, hence the British East India Company took the region as its colony for trading and governance purposes. The Indian Rebellion originated from three groups of people who felt discontented with British rule. This included feudal aristocrats who had lost their titles and domains under the new rule. Britain never recognized the adoption of the princes as the inheritors of the rule, hence they felt shortchanged. Secondly, the landlords had lost their land and large estates to peasant farmers, hence they were annoyed with the Britons and were ready to fight. The peasant farmers were too annoyed due to imposed large taxes meant to collect revenue for the Britain Empire. Many local inhabitants, such as moneylenders, suffered large losses, hence, they felt unhappy with the British rule, hence the rebellion. However, despite their efforts to force the Britons out of their land, they could not march their weapons and the army tactics. This marked the complete establishment of British rule in India. Analysis. Before the British invasion and rule, India practiced barter, where goods were exchanged for goods. Many of the locals were agricultural farmers growing both crops and rearing animals. The craftsmen used to carve and make the goods for the synagogues to be used as instruments of worship. In addition, only the local religion was recognized in the region, i.e., Buddhism. Other religions were rarely unheard of. The Indians organized themselves in villages where they practiced their economic activities. However, they were ruled by princes who lived in town. Most of the economic activities were labor-intensive or done by hand, where lands were hand-tilled, and weaving and spinning were also done by hand. The benefits of the trade were utilized locally for development. However, their primitive technology would not allow for complex developments such as the construction of infrastructure. With the coming of British rule, many changes were put into place. This includes the establishment of the money trade, where goods were exchanged for money. This opened international trade, something unheard of before, as many depended on local trade. In addition, the form of the government was altered to favor the Britons, where the local rulers were supposed to be under the British governor, who was autonomous and supreme. The British rule established the freedom of religion and movement. This allowed Protestant missionaries in the area to preach Christianity as well as Muslims, hence some got converted to these new religions. More so, the Britons introduced capital-intensive forms of production where a spinner was introduced in Lancashire and a weaver in Bengal. This replaced the Hindu weaver and spinner. In addition, factories were introduced where spinning and weaving were done full-time. In ancient India, most of these activities were spent in spare time and at home. The craftsmen were made to produce carvings and other products for sale in the international market. Whereas land was owned freely, title deeds were introduced as proof of ownership and utilization. Therefore, British rule had a great impact on India's way of life both economically, socially, and politically. As in most cases, new and complicated ideologies were introduced to replace their simpler means and forms of doing things. If you want to find more works like this essay on British colonialism and its impact on Indian culture, head over to ivypanda.com. It has a collection of samples with thousands of submissions covering virtually all academic subjects.